Al 1 de Mayo.
Hello and welcome in. This is the Sam D, giving you a quick Thursday night football recap. We had the Bills and the Dolphins getting down in South Beach last night. Bills come away with the dub 31-10 and what was a pretty much lackluster game because the Bills could run and the Dolphins could not stop the run. James Cook continuing to establish himself. No Keon Coleman breakout game yet, but 41 snaps last night. Active at least. Shakir is the number one. Lots of things to go over. Josh Allen continuing to look like a guy that at times could be in that Mahomes class, and then at other times is clearly in that second tier, but did enough to get the job done. James Cook more so the star for the Bills last night. If you're the Dolphins, you have a quarterback issue. And even though the focus will be on Tua Tagovailoa's fourth concussion, more so, they were getting blown out even before Tua got concussed. We're here to talk about it. I think ultimately this whole thing will have to come down to the health of Tua Tagovailoa. Because even obviously Skylar Thompson is not someone to be taken seriously. But as we break down this game and we fade down to bed, and welcome to those that are able to pull up live. Good. So, as we are able to check out what the hell happened with the Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins game last night, there was a lot of hype, there was a lot of fluff, there was a lot of pomp and circumstance going into, well, is this finally going to be the time that the Miami Dolphins show that they can be one of the favorites and come out this AFC East? That has been a constant. If you listen to Miami Dolphins content, podcast, national radio shows like Le Batard, they love to talk about this is the year for the Dolphins, this is the year. Tua's talking different. That was a huge narrative. Tua Tagovailoa was talking different. He finally got the bag, and he was out here with his chest puffed out saying, show me the money. He was talking real tough. He got at Brian Flores, made Brian Flores go out there in Minnesota and have two players stand by his side with the shades on, looking like he was copping pleas and apologizing for his treatment of Tua Tagovailoa. So all things were pointing in the right direction for Tua. Got the bag. Showed that I am a franchise quarterback, at least in theory, because the Dolphins felt inclined enough to pay him. Then, because he got the bag, which is equivalent to Trevor Lawrence money, so make of that what you will, but he got his bag, and if you really take a look at it, that made him feel emboldened. That all the haters, all the ones that, were saying, I don't know if Tua was the guy. Well, he got paid like he's the guy. And he went out there and he made Brian Flores apologize. So now all things are looking up. All things are looking like, all right, well, Tua got that off. Now it's time to take that next step and elevate. Well, fourth concussion aside, did you see any improvement? Because I didn't. They barely beat the Jags last week. And that was more so about the defense than it was the offense. Tyreek Hill made the one play, the play that he's supposed to make every game. He made that 80-yard touchdown reception, and that kind of put them back in the mix, and then the defense held on. Last night, spotlight game, especially coming off the heels of the Tyreek Hill arrest that wasn't really arrest, but deposed, all that type of stuff, DWB, we all know what that's about. But coming off the heels of that, all the attention put on not just Tyreek Hill, but the Miami Dolphins offense, and now with the defense that at times can look to be improved, there was a lot to be made last night. So the spotlight was on the Dolphins. The spotlight was on Tyreek Hill. The spotlight was on newly, freshly paid Tua Tagovailoa. And even before getting concussed, we'll go here to the screen, I didn't see a lot. And we can go ahead and go down this box score. When you're looking at what the offense did for the Dolphins last night, 17 of 25, 145 yards. Again, this is a disturbing trend, and we've talked about this on the recap episode that just dropped yesterday on this same very YouTube channel. The passing yards, and you would think a team, the offense that has Tyreek Hill, that has Jalen Waddle, that has even Jonnu Smith to a certain degree, and definitely with Achane and Mostert when he's healthy, this team should be putting up yards. And he had over 300 plus last week. But again, if we take away that 80 on that one play to Tyreek, those are pedestrian numbers. And so again, they don't hit the deep ball last night, even before Tua got concussed. And you look at these numbers, 17 to 25, $145. And 3 interceptions. This looked like Brian Flores' Tua Tagovailoa last night. You know somewhere Brian Flores was smiling and laughing his ass off watching these 3 picks. Now, one pick was a bounce off of the shoulder pad, so you acquiesce on that one. But the other 2, that was Brian Flores Tua. And a lot of people were like, oh, man, how could you be so down on Tua? Look how good he is. Oh, that's because of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, 2 dudes that he did not have, that Brian Flores did not have the privilege of having when he was head coach. All of a sudden, after Brian Flores is up out of there, McDaniels comes in, boom, we're going to go trade for Tyreek Hill after drafting Jalen Waddle the year before. So let me get this straight. Brian Flores, who was doing wonders with a team that was a mixed match unit, a team that at one point was openly tanking, and Brian Flores was still able to will that team to a handful of victories. They draft Jalen Waddle, they get Brian Flores up out of there, they bring in the offensive genius that is Mike McDaniels, they get Tua, they make the trade for Tyreek Hill, and away we go. Oh my God, this offense looks so great. Brian Flores was never given that opportunity, but getting still, Tua Tagovailoa was able to withstand and get the bag and get confidence from Mike McDaniels, who walked in and immediately said, this is the most accurate QB I've ever seen. Not the best quarterback he's ever seen, but the most accurate quarterback I've ever seen. And that, and just a continued boost of just positive reinforcement built up whatever Brian Flores allegedly tore down when Tua came into this league. So 17 to 25, $145, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, 56.7 QB rating. And you see the 2 rushing attempts. Now, the first rushing attempt was a nice little 6-yard scramble, but it's that second one for 11 yards. That's the one that got him concussed. And we could take a look at it here. Your man's really thought he could run this rock. And wouldn't you know it, he runs into Damar Hamlin, the guy who died, by the way, the guy who clinically, medically died on the football field in the same game in which Tua got concussed, by the way. That was his 3rd concussion. Now they come back and they spin it back. Now a 4th concussion, and it's again involving Damar Hamlin. So Tua puts the head down, and you see that right there. That neck bends. That neck bends, and that doesn't look good, right? That's not a good thing. Your body doing that, I don't think necks are supposed to bend like that. So he's in the concussion protocol, and it involves Damar Hamlin, the man who literally died on the field. So again, when we're talking about the NFL, when you're talking about what this sport looks like, when you're talking about all the physical pain and suffering that plenty of these players suffer while they're playing, and most certainly after they're done playing, when you see a guy that literally died on the field coming together with a guy that up until this point had suffered 3 prior concussions and a myriad of other injuries, them coming together and the guy that died get the best of the guy that was concussed 3 times, that's an upset. That's an absolute upset, okay? So you see what happened there. There's the hit. And you have a bunch of players that took to the internet, and they're telling it's time for Tua to retire. Now, 2 years ago, when the whole Cincinnati thing, when the third concussion happened, this was a huge talking point because that was his second concussion in a year. Okay? He had one against Buffalo, the same Buffalo team, early in 2022, early in that season. Then it got concussed a handful of weeks later on another Thursday night game against the Bengals. And that was when Damar Hamlin died on the field. So this is going to become a thing with Tua. People want him to retire. Should he retire? The call has been made. You got Des Bryant saying that's it. NFL, go ahead and do the right thing. Tua has had entirely way too many concussions. He needs to retire for his longevity, health concerns. Now, Des Bryant, throw up the X. But one guy's opinion. Your man's Unc, who's out here auditioning for Pornhub on IG Live, says really hope Tua is okay. But he's got to seriously think about shutting it down. I hate saying this. His concussions are getting worse and worse, and he's a young man with his entire life ahead of him. Now, that part is true because Tua just got married. I believe he just had a child. So he does have his whole life and his family's life at stake. But if you're Tua Tagovailoa, this is a culture of football. No one wants the game to tell them when it's time to walk away. People want to walk away when they want to walk away. We've seen this with numerous players. Calvin Johnson talked about, wanting to keep playing, but his body quit on him. And he had no choice but to walk away. Absolutely, positively no choice but to walk away. The game retired him, and he resents that. A lot of players resent when the game or your body forces you to walk away. You want to walk away when you're mentally like, you know what? I am done with this sport. Vontae Davis, rest in peace, did it perfectly. Even though it was in the middle of a game, even after I believe he had just either making a big tackle or had just a pick or a fumble, something, that Vontae Davis was like, yeah, I'm good, dog. I'm deucing this place. I'm not sticking around. I'm leaving in this game. Antonio Brown, as crazy as it looked, as dramatic as it looked, and for different reasons, but him walking off that field retired himself. He retired himself that day. As crazy as it was in MetLife walking off in the game, he retired himself. You want to be able to walk away. You don't want your body and you don't want the game to tell you when it's time to walk away. Tua Tagovailoa, I don't think will retire. I think these are more so just popular talking points. But if you start to really break down his injury history, 2018 fractured finger, 2018 high ankle sprain, 2019 high ankle sprain, 2019 dislocated hip, 2021 fractured ribs, 2021 fractured finger, 2022 concussion, 2022 concussion, and tonight another concussion. Now again, this is just his NFL history. This is number 4 in terms of concussions, okay? 2 years ago, we talked about that Bills one. This was what he looked like in that last Bills game where he suffered, I believe, concussion number 2 or 3. Gets the hit, gets up, stumbles around. His lineman tries to corral him. He tries to shake it off because it's football. Tries to run to try to huddle up and then collapses. Body gives out, brain gives out, collapses. Again, it's football. He's trying to push through. He's holding his head. He doesn't know where he's at right here. And then the offensive lineman finally had to just grab him and hold him because he clearly has no idea where he's at. He's been more susceptible. We've seen other quarterbacks deal with concussions, get dinged up, bounce back, all of that stuff. But that doesn't mean it's not a one-size-fit-all type thing. It is not a monolith in terms of how you handle dealing with a concussion. Everybody's brain is not wired or engineered exactly the same. The way you get concussed could be different than the way that I am when I am concussed. Tua Tagovailoa clearly has shown his body cannot handle the physical pounding of this sport. If that's the case, and you got 150 of them M's coming your way, Why would you continue to put yourself out there to potentially get concussed? Now, he doesn't wear the little plastic dome, John, where, the little cap that dudes could wear now that people laugh at because it looks weird. But again, if he's wearing that cap last night, does this concussion not happen? If he's wearing a little doofy cap, but has but something that has been engineered and scientifically proven to help prevent concussions, if he's wearing that cap, does that not happen? And again, the worst thing about it is you see the hand thing go up, and that was the most disturbing part when it happened a couple of years ago. He had that thing where he was like frozen and it's like a spasm. They said it was a spasm. Like when you get concussed, his body violently spasmed as a signal of there is nerve damage happening. Yet your man's is out here trying to get it going. And he did walk off under his own power. We'll show that he walked off under his own power. But again, after going into that blue tent and being diagnosed with a concussion, even here, he's walking, he's trying to look up at the stands. Maybe he's looking for the family, so something to that effect, but that doesn't look like someone who's ready to play. And even though they have the long break in terms of, playing on Thursday night, they don't play again until Sunday after next. And I believe they got to go all the way to Seattle. So not only are you it's only a week and change before your next game, but it also includes a cross-country West Coast trip. I just don't see the logic in having him try to come back and play. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The injuries are one thing in terms of understanding his history, but these concussions happen to him. He's become more susceptible. And these are just the ones that he's being diagnosed with, okay? There have been tons of players, former players now, ex-players now, that have admitted that they've played. I think Alex Smith was one of the more ones, at least from the quarterback position. He's admitted that he was concussed way more times than he was physically, actually medically diagnosed. So even though we're talking about 3-4 concussions with Tua Tagovailoa, how many more times was he actually concussed? That's the real storyline here. Now, the Bills took care of business. They won the game. And that will kind of get lost in this. Tua Tagovailoa was not very good in this game. And it kind of makes you question whether he still can be the guy. If he's not being concussed and he's healthy, is he still even that good when he's 100% to lead this Dolphins team to where they ultimately want to get to? Is he even that good? Because these numbers were putrid. But that gets lost in the sauce now because of the fourth concussion. The lack of being able to target your big weapons. When Achane is your leading target getter, that's a problem. I mean, salute if you have him in fantasy, but in terms of offensive cohesiveness, this is not what you expect. Tyreek Hill, only 6 targets. Waddle, 4 targets. Jonnu Smith, 7 targets. Some of that was definitely with Skylar Thompson. Chosen Anderson, why he's even on this roster, I don't know. Odell is hurt. Big shock there. So Chosen Anderson is now getting some run, Robbie Chosen. But the Dolphins have bigger problems than just, all right, Tua gets concussed a lot. Mike McDaniels is known or is thought to be of a genius. What is happening to where that whole genius thing hasn't really shown itself since they put up that 70 piece against the Broncos last year? They put up that 70 piece last year and everyone was in awe. Everyone was in awe. Now, whether it's the playoffs, whether it's been down the stretch, tricking off some games in the second half last year when the division seemingly was in their hands to grasp, the AFC East was theirs for the taking last year. With the Bills, not sure what was going on. Diggs, Ken Dorsey getting fired. There was a lot of turmoil there. The Jets lose Aaron Rodgers 4 plays in. The division was theirs for the taking. And they tricked it off with a bunch of games late in the second half of the year. The McDaniels experiment was thought to be one of, this guy's a genius. Shanahan's system, offensive genius. He's going to scheme guys open, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The biggest thing that has helped this offense be dynamic is, hello, they have Tyreek Hill. But that's predicated on making sure that there's a quarterback who could get the ball to Tyreek Hill. And while Tua admitted they force-fed and tried to get Tua Tagovailoa, try to get Tyreek Hill to 2,000 receiving yards last year, like that, if that's the crux of the offense, if that's the genius, that's not much of a genius. All of us would know if I got Tyreek Hill, send him deep. Waddle can also go deep, or you could do intermediate stuff with him. It's pretty simple. Have a bunch of fast running backs in the backfield with Achane and Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr. We got a whole bunch of speed everywhere. Still haven't really figured out the whole tight end thing. Jonnu Smith is definitely an upgrade over what they've done, but they had a pass-catching tight end in Gesicki. McDaniels wanted no parts of him. So how does this work? The run game looks good when it works, but is that something you could depend on? If you watch the second half of the season last year for the Dolphins and even through 2 games this year, that's not a running game I would think is like something I would depend on. I wouldn't depend on that. So what do